Oh, that's stressful.
But things have been good, just
Good.
busy.
Well, I'm excited for your first real book.
Yeah, I I'm super excited about it. I can't believe it's out. I mean, it's been so long working on it, just
Yeah.
kind of plugging away at it. See if I can turn the thing on. Just like plugging away and working on this thing on the side, and it's crazy to finally be at a place where it's um, make this full screen so it quits doing that. Anyways, yeah, it's crazy that I'm to a point now where it's going to be out. Like to have it in my hands is insane. Like it almost felt like it wasn't going to happen because they pushed it back, and then of course the crisis thing happened, and I just didn't know. It seemed like but for everybody back in March, everything was so up in the air. It seemed like you know, anything could happen. So it's so nice to have it out. It's so nice to have it complete and done. And um, my son is reading it and loves it and having a great time with it. And it's really fun. He spent a lot of time painting it with me, so it's nice
So
because
cool. Good
he
memories
reads now.
attached.
Yeah, he reads now, so he can like actually read it. And um, and that's been really fun.
Yeah, the dedication was so cute. So, I'm recording this, so hopefully it's okay that I post this on our social media page.
Any of it's
Um,
fine. Yeah.
if you want to start by just introducing yourself, say a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Um, well, I'm Jared Cullum, and I I write and illustrate books, young adult and some older demographic books as well. I've been working in comics for about maybe 6 years now, and I work primarily in traditional media, so watercolor and gouache, sometimes oil paint, and other things. And so for me, for the past 4 years, I've been working on a book on the side, as well as the other comics projects I've been working on, which is this is my graphic novel. It's a middle grade graphic novel, Kodi, um, and it is a book. I wanted to write a story that is about belonging and about kind of finding your place in the world. And it's a personal story in a sense that it has certain meaning to me, which I don't necessarily want to ascribe to it because I hope people will read it with a fresh sort of perspective and maybe find their own sort of connections to the characters or to the story or a particular character.
Yeah.
Um, but the story is essentially about finding love, having lost that love, and then the sort of arduous journey to rediscover that um,
So this
is
came from like
essentially
a
the story.
personal experience.
Yes, yeah, yes. Although it's a metaphor because I have not befriended a grizzly bear or
Why
a Kodiak bear
not?
in the Alaskan forests. Um, so yes, yeah. In a sense, yeah. It's based on my own personal life, and but the story itself is about a girl who is sort of isolated. I wanted to have a story about kind of friendship and belonging in the time where that is very difficult to find. So I thought, middle grade is about the time when it's difficult to find friends. It's difficult to find a friend in yourself too. You're sort of struggling, and so for this girl, and through whatever her past experiences that have led her to this place, she's in a sort of place of isolation in her life, and so she befriends this um, by incident befriends this Kodiak bear, and they develop a very close friendship. And then, unfortunately, she's spending the summer in Alaska, and unfortunately, it gets cut short. She has to go back to her home in Seattle. And then the actual book is sort of this bear's quest to find her again. So he um, goes on this big sort of journey to find her, and there's helpers along the way that he meets. There's, of course, people who are terrified of him. There's all kinds of other things that he runs into to try to find this girl again, who's in this big city now.
So have you ever been to Alaska? Was that part of your inspiration, or was this all
I
the
have not.
photograph? I mean,
I've
I
not
felt
been
like
to
I
Alaska.
was there. The imagery is so beautiful, but
Thanks.
how did you
Uh,
come come up
I
with?
watched a lot of documentaries.
Yeah.
Um, I do a lot of painting on locations locally, so a lot of paintings around the city, and painting on location or outdoors, and sort of collect those for backgrounds and inspiration for backgrounds. A lot of the actual scenes that take place in this town. There's a town called. It takes place primarily in this town called Sitka, Alaska, and then in Seattle. Um, and I have a childhood friend that lives in Seattle, and I have a mentor slash very close friend who took a vacation to Sitka, Alaska, and she took a ton of pictures. And so she has always been a kind of sounding board for me in terms of ideas. Um, she is a professional writer. I wouldn't call myself a professional writer. And so she's always been there for me in terms of like, I write in the same way one throws a lot of spaghetti at the wall and hopes that one will stick. That's sort of my general process. And so for her, it was nice to have someone I could just sort of throw all these ideas at, and she helped me sort of knit these different. I had basically three main concepts, and for me, I think very visually. It's very difficult for me to literally write things down. I don't know if that's because I something with my I'm not trying to talk about it with my intelligence or what, but I have a hard time with words. I'm not very articulate. And so for me, I can see a picture very clearly in my head. So I had various sort of scenes in my head that I could see very crystal clear. And so she helped me sort of knit those things together. So those sort of things together into a cohesive story. Um, but anyway, she vacationed in Sitka, Alaska. So when it came up to like, oh, what if this happened or this happens? She was the one who was like, oh, it could take, if you're looking for like a forest in a little town, which is basically what I was like
Yeah.
saying it could be. She was like, there's this, I've been to this place called Sitka, and she took a million photos. And so she gave me all those photos. So I had all those photos, and then I had all the photos of Seattle to sort of cobble together the background inspiration for and do the concept art for it for the initial pitch.
So is that hard for you since I know you're normally doing on-site paintings, like having photographs instead of like actual scenery in front of you?
Um, no, it's a great deal easier to work from photographs than it is working on location. Working on location is extremely difficult and often fails because stuff is constantly changing.
Right.
Light, every 15 to 20 minutes, it's an entirely different scene in terms of light. The way the sun moves, the light is completely different. And every hour or so, it's just entirely different. All the cars are different. The people have moved or whatever has changed. And the light is entirely different. If you had shadows this way, they're all the other way now. It's hard. You have to go really, really fast and get comfortable with the materials. But what it does allow you to do is start to understand things like the science of light and the simplification of form, which is what I spend a great deal of my time studying, which is taking the knowledge that they were really immersed in the 1800s in the sort of impressionist era, sort of discovering this kind of science of light and color and how to use color to portray light and simplify it. To me, that synthesis and that practice is very similar to cartooning in a sense that cartooning is taking the vast complexity of life and reality and then you're condensing it into a symbol that people can read more concisely and clearly. It's like taking a run-on sentence and breaking it down to just three words, that very concisely convey an idea. And to me, painting is very similar, almost the same concept. We're taking the extreme complexity of depth and atmosphere, painting the air between you and the object that you're looking at, the color temperature, the turn of form. You're taking all those complexities and you're trying to break it down into its most simple uh, structure of value, or light and dark, and what the simple shapes are. So I spend a great deal of time thinking about how to concisely simplify it. So then
It
when
sounds
I
very
do,
complicated.
yeah, probably sounds boring, and I'm sorry. But so so I spend a great deal of my time studying that, and then when I work from a photograph or from my imagination, I sort of have an idea in my head of, if this shadow is here, it's going to be more blue or more purple or more pink, and this would be influenced by this light or whatever, and I can sort of put that knowledge together and sort of cartoon in both worlds, which is what I like about traditional painting, is that it's sort of it's cartooning but for light instead of contour lines, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love the rays of light that you incorporated on like every page. Really
Oh yeah, I cheat those. That's that's called a god ray technically, I guess. Um, yeah, if you look through the book, I cheat that in almost anytime there's a chance. If there's anything above the character outside of frame or trees or anything, I cheat those rays of light all the time because there's something really it draws attention and focus to the person, to the main character and stuff. I
I
love doing
definitely noticed that.
that. you
That's
know,
pretty.
I was gonna say, like even when she leaves town, I spend a lot of my time too considering what like means too, in the same way that you can do with color and you can do with symbols. So with cartooning, again, where we're taking the complexity of life and condensing it, we're also sort of retaining the idea of language, symbols as language. So like I spent a great deal of time thinking about that. So the shapes of the characters are meant specifically to portray certain aspects. So the grandma character is very eccentric but very friendly, so she's built entirely out of circles because she's meant to be a very kind of soft, um, eccentric character. The shape plays a great deal of importance, not just in the character design but in the value structure of the background. So how I can convey a meaning without actually saying it. So a concise way to hopefully make you feel a certain way or think a certain thing looking at the panel without there having to be any words. And I feel the same way about color and light too. So this is what I was going to say. This is one of the panels I was going to say where I cheat the God rays in over the character. I do that all the time. But I'm saying all of that to say, even using things like a storm, for example, when things seem like they're going to be scary or maybe like tumultuous, I'll typically, things will start to, you can start to use color and um, the representation of light to convey the feeling of the scene. So like, where things start to feel tumultuous, for the character, maybe it starts raining, or I'll sort of find ways to cheat in light that might make you feel like things are maybe off. And then the book ends. I guess I shouldn't show the end of the book.
That's spoiler.
The book ends in sunset, though, so which was intentional because it sort of conveys a certain meaning, like a closing.
Like an ending.
Yeah, an ending. The sort of golden rays of light convey a certain feeling, a certain meaning. So when you're doing a story, especially a story like this that involves one of the main characters not talking at all, so a great deal of the panels have no words, I try to use, cheat, borrow, steal, any kind of method or communication I can, whether it's shape symbols, value symbols, or color and light, to communicate without having to actually use words. So the hope is that even if there were no words, you'd be able to read the comic. Some of my favorite artists, like my all-time hero is Ciro Pedrosa. He's like my favorite comics artist, and he is, I think, one of the best I've seen at that. Well, they're in French, so you don't, you know what I mean? He's French, and his books are, unless you get the English, now there's a bunch of them that are translated, but a few years ago when I was really studying him and studying every panel he did, like, except for First Second put out Three Shadows, which is phenomenal. It's black and white, but it's phenomenal. But all of his other books, though, you don't have to. I could you can read the book with it being French, because his expression and color and shape and those things communicate so much. You don't actually need the words at all, which I think is something I aspire to. I don't know if I do it successfully, but it's certainly something I aspire to.
No, Kodi doesn't talk, and I think he had other ways of communication without using words with the characters. So that was really great. And it felt more real because he wasn't talking. Like, it's a real bear.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
So Philip and I both read it last night. You have
Cool.
to read it. So, since you
It's
haven't
cool.
been,
It's exciting that it's there at your shop, or you know what I mean, like because this is
yeah,
my first. Like I've done a lot of 22-page one-offs for various comics companies, and I've done a more 5 to 10 shorts in like collected series for Boom and whoever else.
yeah,
But it's cool to have something that is this many pages that I wrote and painted, and then to hear you say that you have it is kind of exciting.
like
Because like I have them here, so I'm like, this isn't a dream. So it is cool that like you have
yeah,
it,
I just
you've
feel
read
one
it.
early, just so
That's
I can read
cool.
it. I didn't want to be having this conversation and not know what you were talking about.
That's true. I hate that oh, I'm I'm glad that we're it's always good to see you, but I hate that we're doing this here and not at a show or something where we
I
could like
know.
sit down together. But this is where we're at right now. So
Are you
I
doing any virtual cons right now, or?
kind of. I mean, I think I'm participating in a sense in New York, I think. But for the most part, I think I'm gonna have to just wait till next year.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so not a whole lot in the way of cons in terms of the virtual ones. Most of them kind of already have their guest list, I think, and I'm
Yeah.
not really on anybody's radar, so I don't think I haven't been asked to do any in particular, um, and so I don't know. And then so in terms of shows this year, I don't think I'm going to be doing any,
Yeah.
but I hope things get more normal next year and I can actually travel around some. I would have loved to come down to the shop and like
Yeah.
at least see you guys
It's been
at
a
the very
while.
least.
So you said you've been working on this forever. Did it end the way you wanted it, or is there going to be more of the story?
It ended the way I'm happy with. Initially, it was just a one off, and I have various sort of trees of story that I'm working on for potential sequels because their intent, Top Shelf's intent, was to keep this going as a as a series, and I'm fine with. I'm not. I love it and I like the world. Um, I'm fine. I'm kind of fine either way. I really enjoy the world building aspect
Yeah.
of making stories. So to me, this isn't necessarily the only thing I want to do forever. But if it does okay, if there's sort of feedback and interest for it, I'll probably pursue a sequel to it for sure, or multiple sequels depending on it. But as it stands right now, I'm working for a company working on a graphic novel first, which is probably going to eat up the next half a year, or whatever.
Are you allowed to talk about it at all?
No. I wish. I'm excited to, but I can't talk about that one, which is a bummer because I feel like people think I've quit. I've had some people ask me if everything's okay or if I've like some friends from old shows or whatever, who I would see, because my Instagram is all the plein air painting and a lot of it is the plein air painting and painting, teaching painting. And so, especially now that I've signed on to this thing that I can't share, I think people think I've just sort of vanished off into nothing. But
Yeah.
I did recently finish something for Boom that they haven't announced, so I don't know that if I can talk about it, but I imagine they'll announce it soon. A project,
I'm
so
sure I'll see
that
it
should be
when you
fun.
post it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'll turn up eventually.
Awesome. So, do you have anything else to add about Kodi?
I don't think so. Just that I really hope people connect with it. I hope people really enjoy it. Put a lot of consideration into everything, and I hope that people connect with it um, really well.
I definitely love. Is it Katya or?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So, am I going to say that wrong? She was adorable, but I also really enjoyed Joshua's story because it was a different perspective.
Yeah.
The grandma was adorable, so
I think she might have been my favorite to draw just because she was so eccentric and so,
so fluffy.
yeah, fluffy.
So I look forward to more of this wherever
Cool.
that goes.
Awesome.
So thanks
Thank
for
you so
talking to
much.
me.
Yeah,
And tomorrow it'll be in the store tomorrow.
I'm excited. Thanks for interviewing me. And thanks for carrying the book. I wish I could be there to like sign or at least hang out with you guys.
It's okay. We have your signature on other things. We'll
Yeah.
get it another day.
Cool.
So,
Well,
thank you.
thanks. It was great talking to you.
You too. Tell Joe I said hi.
I certainly will.